Yes, please. I was gonna ask you guys to close the door.
Or like prop it so people, if they want to trickle in,
Yeah.
because some people are losing track of time. Well, so kind of the point of this panel is not only just female character progression, but if you actually like go around this room right now, everyone does something a little bit different. I get you two are not females, but you know, same concept. Everyone does something a little bit different, but there's always that person you can look up to that you can relate to. What's getting really interesting with female characters now is they're being more diverse.
Yeah.
NCIS, I believe, if I'm talking about the show correctly, where you have that really cool, quirky IT analyst she became super popular, and she's always wearing like kind of like a goth look. Normally it's like the cute, pretty girl, and now they're actually showing someone with a unique personality, which is pretty awesome. And then you have like Princess Leia. She went from a little princess to a little general, and just all the characters that have progressed is pretty interesting. But also, flip side, Hela from Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
She's physically strong, but is she actually a strong female character? Like, that's something also to look at, is just because the female character is strong doesn't necessarily make she's an actual figurative and literal strong character. Yes?
Is anybody watching The Expanse?
Yes. Best show ever.
Oh my god, rival to Star Trek. It's incredible. When we just finished the last episode of the final season 3, my husband and I both were just like, wow, now I feel like season 4 will be the actual beginning to the season. Like, everything is just leading up to that. But strong female characters. Majority of the show is strong female characters. Gunny, my favorite. I'm in love with her.
Yeah, gone are the days where most of the time the female was just the eye candy or like the love interest.
Or the damsel in distress.
A damsel in distress. So, yeah.
These ladies are not in need of saving. They are saving people. So
Yes.
they are super strong characters, really well developed.
Yeah, and one of the pins I was making, one of my favorite quotes is, "She needed a hero, so she became one." Yeah.
So, with that, like, how would you compare, like, female characters from the past, maybe like an I Love Lucy, extraordinarily strong character? And I know this is kind of like dwelling beyond just the geek culture, but it's something interesting to look at, versus the characters you have now, that we are like, man, I wish I had this back in the day. Or do you respect the women back in the day, those characters, because they were strong in and of their type back then, and they actually paved the way for where we are now? What do you guys think?
I think I agree with the latter. I just also like the fact that, like, I feel like there's kind of a trope, like, back in the day. Like, if you think about the Star Wars trilogy, for instance, the original trilogy, like, there's pretty much only one woman main character. Like, who else is there? Whereas if you look at Star Wars now, like, whether or not you like the new trilogy or not, there are different women characters that each person can identify with. Like, I just, like, for instance, if you're talking about Disney princesses growing up, they were all white princesses that were just princesses.
And
like,
all needed so much help.
what?
Yes. All needed so much
Exactly.
help.
And I remember when Princess Jasmine came around, I'm Filipino, I really identified with her, even though she is Middle Eastern, like, because she looked somewhat like me. And then when Mulan came around, I just, like, my mind, you know? So it's just like, there's just more and more diversity when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to ethnicity, when it comes to occupation. So you could, like, if you're a geek woman or girl, you could find somebody that you identify with and look up to, which is, like, I feel like in the 50s that you pretty much were just like, oh, you're a woman, like, I look up to you.
I know, I was so excited when they brought out Rose for the new Star Wars, because, like, finally, an Asian and a girl in Star Wars, yay! You know, someone like us, because she and I are both Filipino. But it's just hard also because, of course, there's always a backlash, you know, like, unfortunately, both the actress who played Rose and the actress who played Rey both had to turn off their Instagrams because the backlash for the characters they play, and also, most especially for Rose, the racism came up a lot. So there's always that.
And that's the thing, like, you could hate the character and what she did in the film, don't hate the actress.
Exactly, and I think it comes down to a lot of, like, people will justify misogyny and racism and base it on the fact that the character is poorly written or the character is poorly executed, even though it doesn't fall on the actor at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge, like, not necessarily a huge concept, but a huge problem as far as, like, geek culture goes, is that it's so set with the status quo that any change to that, and they will hark on stuff that doesn't necessarily, like, when you look at a character, especially, I think a great example is Han Solo, the new movie. Nobody's criticizing Han Solo for being a white man. They're criticizing him for being a poorly written character and a poorly executed story. And nobody's doing the same thing with the new trilogy for Star Wars. And I think that's, like, a really, I personally, I think it's really disappointing. But, I mean, it's definitely pointing stuff like that out and figuring out, like, where to go from there and how to improve things like that.
I think it's awesome because you're a minority in the room, like with all these women here, but like as a white male, like you recognize that. You are?
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
way to be judging.
I don't get any sun.
You're Filipino?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you think so?
No.
Okay.
Nobody does. Nobody does at all.
Because I think it's what's the reason your hair.
Yeah,
We're mostly
it's
dark.
blonde, yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, I forget sometimes. I really do, because my mom is very, very white, but my dad is the Filipino side of the family, and so I just got the white girl genes, and I don't get any sun, so it doesn't show at all. But yeah, no, I definitely feel that I personally am in the minority when I look at, like, comment sections on trailers and stuff, and, like, especially in, like, the new Battlefield trailer, like the fact that they're calling out historical accuracy in a game where you jump out of a plane, shoot the person in the plane behind you, and take their plane. It just, I don't know, something about it just really sets me off, because it feels like deeply internalized misogyny that they're trying to justify with historical accuracy, and the excuses that they come up with to try to justify it. It doesn't feel like they're coming from a place of what's the term?
I'd say logic.
Well, it's not even, it's kind of consistency. It kind of falls under consistency. There's a proper word for it that it's a very disingenuous argument. That's what I was going for.
Well, sorry that I misidentified you. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, ladies, since we're talking princess to general kind of thing with Princess Leia and Disney and damsels in distress, now that Star Wars is kind of taken over by Disney now, what are your thoughts? Do you think that they're maybe going to start taking those female characters and take them back more to the princess damsel in distress, where they've been trying to be like those tough characters, but it's getting so much backlash? Do you think Disney, being big Disney that it is going to maybe start trying to pull them back, or do you think they're going to keep pushing strong female characters?
Yeah, if you actually look at Disney characters, I'm a huge Disney fan.
I'm a huge Disney fan, so that's what I was like.
Well, look at Frozen.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, look at Frozen. Look at the Princess
Moana.
and the Frog. You have Mulan, where she completely, and that was bad.
I feel like Mulan was like a changing point for Disney films.
Yes, because and Disney is also doing really good, especially with the two Frozen characters, and they're just like easy to identify with now because it's one of the more recent films where they didn't need the man to save them. It just showed the juxtaposition of a female character with a male character working together as a team versus he's there to save them and pull them out of the water. The two sisters, with their sisterly bond, actually saved each other. Instead of him giving her the kiss to save her, she protected her sister, which was what ultimately saved both of them. So it's kind of cool how Disney, they've slowly but surely progressed forward with their female characters.
But even when you go back to Mulan and being, I'm a woman that can do everything that you can do. And that was the best. I mean, I was older when that came out, when I had younger sisters, but even like as a teenager, I was like, this movie is fantastic. It's the first good one.
If you've seen the
or Moana or something, it's really excellent. And the music is really
If you've seen the new Wreck-It Ralph trailer, I forgot the little girl's name, but when she gets caught in the room of all the princesses, and they're trying to figure out if she's a princess or not, and they're like, were you saved by a husband and by a man, and everything suddenly get better? And she's like, yes, now you're a princess. But they're making fun of it now, so I think they're starting to realize that, the newer generation, that we've got Black Panther, we've got Wonder Woman.
There's not just one narrative for women, and that narrative is, you're a background character.
Yeah.
Got saved by a dude.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
how many times in your life has a woman ever said, "Oh my gosh, what do we do?" Like normally, if bad cussing. Normally, if things are going horribly wrong, you turn to your mom like, "Mom, what do we do?" You don't wake up your dad because you're in trouble. You wake up your mom. But everyone ignores that fact when we start getting into pop culture. My dad actually got mad one time because I was like, "Mom." And then my dad stirred awake. He's like, "Huh, what?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, Dad, I meant to wake up Mom." "Well, what do you need?" "Well, I don't feel good." "Well, why do you need your mom?" "Because she takes care of me." And my dad got mad. He's like, "I take care of you. Like, your mom's not the only one." And he got more upset because I'm daddy's girl, and he didn't want me to think that he's not there for me.
Well, that's kind of a stereotype too. Like the woman is the caretaker.
Right.
Yeah.
But
It's easy, like especially since I nurse my little one. You know, she sees mom as the food source, the most comfort she gets. So it's not just a stereotype. Maybe it's something that is a little bit in nature. So
Yeah.
not that it has to be that way. So not that
No, I mean-
can't get all the love they need from a male figure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. So
Sorry.
no, I get off track very easily.
No, I'm glad this is turning more into the discussion than what we had it outlined, but I'd rather have the discussion and hear what everybody thinks.
Well, that actually brings up a point, like, because I hate to say it, because you always say stereotypes are there for a reason, which is not always true. Like, it may just be someone's fitting into a caricature because they feel like they have to. Like, when I was in high school, I liked having short hair because I'm all about functionality. I wear jeans that feel like yoga pants because it's functional to me. And I was like, "Oh, are you a dyke? Like, are you a lesbian?" And it's like, "Yep." I just started saying yes because I was like, I'm tired of dealing with it. And you have those stereotypes. If you look or dress a certain way, you are a certain way. Whereas now it's changing. Look at the generals we had in Wakanda, where they are very strong, no hair, but very feminine at the same time, and they accept both sides of the story. And I totally thought it was cool too when they actually put her up against her husband when they're fighting at the end. Most stories would have had the woman put down her sword and like, "I can't kill you, I love you too,"
I love my country.
And he's like, "Would you really kill me for Wakanda?" And she's like, "For Wakanda, I'll do anything." And she was like, "Don't tempt me." And I was like, thank you. Finally, we have a woman that's willing to say, "Look, I love you, but sorry, there's a bigger picture than the two of us." And that was really cool to me.
And it looks into sort of patriotism over like the family structure as well, and it sort of like delves into a little bit of themes there.
Yeah. It again, just so many characters you could pick and pull, whereas back in the day, not so much.
Yeah, definitely. When I was a kid, I thought I grew up in Memphis, and there were me and one other family on the street that we lived on. There were only two white families on the street, me and another family. And I went to a school that had tons of black kids. Memphis was a huge black community. And I watched TV, a lot of TV. My mom was just going to park this in front of it. And I constantly just was confused about why I saw majority white people on TV, but in my life I saw majority black people, which of course Memphis is unique in that Memphis along with some other cities. But I used to count like the few black people on television, and when I was really young I thought that maybe that's what racism was like noticing race. But, just now I know that's not the case. But a lot of people even still think that, just noticing race or talking about it in any way. I had a 14-year-old cousin who asked me if it was okay to mention that someone was black and if that mention was racist. And I was like, no, it's not racist, But yeah, definitely now, so being obsessed with it when I was a kid, because it was so different from what I was seeing day to day. Now every time I see it, it's the most exciting thing to me. I love it when I see like super diverse characters, and my husband will be like, "Well, there's not you think about that region, there aren't that many diverse people that live in that region, blah, 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 blah." I'm like, I don't care. Like, somebody is watching this as a kid, and they get to say, like, "Oh, look at all these different kind of people that exist in the world, and we live in a bigger, global society now. We can't say, like, oh, just because I live in Whiteville, Tennessee, I can shut out everybody else that's not exactly like me."
Right.
Yeah.
Having all those diverse people, and then, stronger female characters, it's going to make people better.
And so we've been talking about an evolution of princess to general. I think what I want to ask the room is, where do you think we need to improve in the different fandoms? Or where do you think this evolution's going? What's after general?
I think it's almost like you don't even have to ask the question anymore.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how to put it into words.
Can we have queens again? Because queen has become a bad word in the little girls and fairy tales. And one of the prime
That's a good
examples
point.
I can think of is My Little Pony. We have Princess Celestia, who is the ruler of Equestria, but she's a princess, she's not a queen.
Mm-hmm.
We have Queen Chrysalis of the Changelings, she's a bad guy. So it almost, the message I get from that is, if you're a queen, it means you're evil.
Or the evil queen, even for princess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Maleficent, yeah.
Maleficent, yeah.
so why is it okay to be a princess, but you can't ever, graduate up to queen?
Ageism. There we go.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's probably a big part of it. Yes.
Or it's kind of, I think maybe it kind of, you could possibly view it as like a woman in power being a negative thing,
Yes.
as sort of the
Yeah.
view of the time
Mhm.
was that a
Princess
woman
is
in
still
power.
sweet and diminutive.
Exactly, and so but a princess is like
Which is why
it's not a person in power, it's someone of royalty.
Which is why Princess Celestia makes no sense, because she is in power, but she's still a princess.
But not in title. Title is everything.
Yeah.
I actually, this is bringing it back to my own life, but when I was at one unit, it's called the Essex OIC Officer in Charge. I was not in title, that person that basically ran the IT for the entire battalion, which is about 400 to 600 users. If you asked anyone, they'd say she doesn't have the title, but she is the Essex OIC. But then the actual Essex OIC, who no one liked, didn't do her job, didn't do anything, she had the title, and so she still at the end of the day got to make all the decisions. And when I brought that up to my battalion commander, I'm like, she gets to make the decisions. If you want me to be in charge, put me in charge. He's like, well, no, and I'm like, okay, well then I'm not helping you, and you can just give me a bad rating, and I'm okay with it. And it was funny how, even though I was OIC in everything but title, how much it actually affected the shop, or the section I had that I was in charge of, or team. I'm trying to translate military terms, complicated, but you'd be surprised how much just the title, can just change what's going on around you, and that's just something I've had to face.
The ageism thing is very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that is.
I think still we have a long way to go as far as, yes, we're having stronger female characters, but I still feel like predominantly they're either sidekicks or secondary characters. I mean, we're talking Black Panther and Wakanda, and I haven't seen the movie, but it's still Black Panther. That's still the main character.
Has everyone
Yes,
seen
there's
Infinity War in this room?
I've seen Infinity War, but I haven't seen Black Panther.
Okay, no?
Not
And
yet.
Okay, I don't want to spoil it, but I
Yeah.
feel like maybe there might be more representation in the Black Panther, like if, just because of what happened in Infinity War.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
I've
going to
just
say.
seen, like,
To not
I
spoil
know.
it for you,
And
Sarah.
I haven't seen the new Star Wars movies either. I'm so behind on movies. I have no life for it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Han Solo
Yeah,
either.
well, going into the, sorry if I didn't mean to
Oh no,
cut you
you're
off.
good.
Yeah, just kind of elaborating on that, going into, like, with Star Wars, when you look at General Leia, like, she's not, like, I don't think we feel the story from her perspective
Yeah,
at
she's
any
still
point
strong,
in the
but
story.
she's still not
Exactly.
the main.
And so I feel like
person.
the way that it can go up is having those characters be predominant leads.
Yeah.
And then having stories about these female generals in wartime.
And I
then,
wish she was still alive, because that would also be like the ageism component. Like,
Yeah.
when I, get into my 40s, 50s, and 60s, I want to find female characters that I identify with and my age group. But I mean, can you think about?
British television?
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm thinking about. Like, when I think about a really powerful queen that's like worth looking up with, I think about Queen Elizabeth, the real person.
Yeah.
And she's and Queen Victoria, and like,
She's
why
my
don't we
favorite,
have
yeah.
that?
But they have tons of shows that have older, strong
Yes,
female leads. And if you watch
that's
enough
true.
of them on Netflix, it'll start suggesting like a category that's British television, strong female lead.
Now, is it because they have a female queen that they have those stronger characters
my
because
guess.
it's forced them to
Maybe.
face it, or is in America we haven't had to face it
I
yet?
don't think they're forced. I mean, she's a humongous approval rating.
Yeah, I think they've had her for so long, and Queen Victoria
Mhm.
before her, that it's kind of ingrained in the consciousness that yes, a woman can be at that highest level, and it's
not be
perfect.
tyrannical, for one.
It
Right.
would not be tyrannical, yes, and it's more normative for them.
Except for
Yeah.
eating
I
garbage.
think I've heard it in numerous times in British television shows. they always say that the country does better under a queen than a king, like stereotypically. So,
They certainly had some pretty bad kings.
yeah, like, but I can't think of that many. Like, no, I can't think of a bad queen. I mean, they were average.
There's one. She slaughtered in British history that.
Huh?
Victoria?
Oh, I like Victoria.
Which one?
People liked her very much.
There was it Queen Victoria that slaughtered half the population because they weren't Catholic?
That would be Mary.
Mary, yeah, Mary,
Yeah.
Mary
Scots.
Queen of Scots, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bloody Mary.
that's the one that
Okay,
comes
yes,
to mind.
she's not that great.
But again, I think eventually it's going to turn into, we're not going to have a panel about strong female characters, just going to have a panel about strong characters because no one all of a sudden says, oh, well, she's female, so let's pick this apart. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a person.
Nico Case just, I'm not gonna be wrong.
I love Nico
Nerd
Case.
Up.
That's
I don't know if
awesome.
anybody in here listens to Nerd Up,
Yeah.
but they're doing a really great series right now on recharging your batteries. And one of the things that always recharges me is seeing Nico Case perform live. So I thought it was great to get to hear what recharges her, which is like exercise. So it wasn't that exciting, but she did say that she hates that category of like the female version of it. There's the everyone else, which is the men. This is the men
And then you got the pink
category, and then we
version.
have you over here
Yeah.
in this little pet category separated out. The ladies, you did so well. Give them a round of applause.
Yeah. It sucks because you have that, but then it's also like, if you don't recognize that's happening, does it ever actually progress forward?
Yeah, she understands that, right?
Yeah, it's like the
I want
double-
it to be eventually where there's not that separation.
Mhm.
It's just the lead artist in a category, not the lead male or the lead female.
Yeah, I think it's going back to equal, or not equal but fair. Judging people on fair ground versus equal ground. Because my dad, he likes to torture me just because he's my dad, and like we go back and forth. And he's like, back in the day, it was so much better because women just had to sit at home. And he's totally kidding because he basically raised me to be a strong, independent female in his mind. But he always drives me crazy because I'm like, Dad, like there's dudes that do it now, and it's totally cool now. And we'll go back and forth, and I think I just completely derailed.
Well, I'm hoping like when DC brought out Wonder Woman and they saw it was a commercial success, and now that Marvel's gonna bring out, spoiler alert, Captain Marvel, you know, there's going to be this new surgence of at least female characters that, you know, the next generation can look up to. So
Yeah, but I just don't know that. I mean, I want to see it happen now, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of pushback.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing is
Well,
that
just
like
like you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we're
with
going to
the-
use other reasons to justify it.
exactly the way that society currently views women, I think it stems a lot back to because when you look at like when we were talking about the UK.
Not just how men view women, how women view themselves.
Oh,
True.
there's nothing worse
There's
than
that too.
a female judging another female.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't wanted to segue into that, but yeah,
But
I want,
finish
yeah.
that thought.
But looking back at sort of not the origin of the United Kingdom because I'm not too familiar with that. But I mean, when you look at their history, you see a lot of females in power and sort of that prominence. And so when you look at UK television shows, and then you see that they have these strong female, like not only presence but strong female leads as well as a very prominent factor. And you look at sort of America where the Revolutionary War was very prominently male. And so when you look at the history, it sort of, it almost explains why that in media we have that sort of pushback and why we have that internalized. Exactly.
Male-dominated society.
Because we look back and we see that and we're like, well, these were the guys that, history is very often reflected in media. Like, especially in the arts. Like when we look at stereotypes and we look at all this stuff, it often stems from stuff way back when. And so I feel like as we go forward as a society, the more that we produce this media, regardless of backlash, as long as we make the media good, and we make it so that the criticism is only available through direct sexism, and we start calling that out, then we can eventually progress through society to the point where a female president is, once we get that
would have been a good thing.
exactly, and then it would bring the media especially forward, because we can look back in history and we can be like, that's a strong female leader, that's who we can base a character off of, and that's, then you have several different iterations of that, and then as that progresses forward, and it brings everything up, because society can only be reflected in art. It's really difficult to take something that doesn't exist and then create art from it. It's not impossible, obviously. There's several great examples of especially stuff produced in the United States. But looking at it as a whole, like the more that we progress forward as a society, the more that art will progress in turn. And it's just sort of a matter of bringing that up and keep pushing that issue until eventually it reaches a breaking point, and then we have more progressive change.
Then there will be many breaking points.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah, as it goes. It's a process, but it's just a matter of making it go.
Well, considering a lot of the comic books that they're trying to make movies now were done in the 50s and the 60s, and female roles then were so much more different than what they are now.
Yeah.
Like, at least they're trying to, at their best, I guess,
Modernize it.
update it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do give them a nod because you're like you said. I mean, when did Black Panther first originally get created? When did Wonder Woman originally get created? It's like even them trying to have those strong female characters and actually in a very good way, in a positive way, succeeding. I'm like, I give you the nod because you're holding true to the story while still at the same time recognizing that there were flaws in the original story. Yeah, it's fair. So, okay, it just clicked in my head. So fair, judging everyone on fair ground versus equal ground. I attribute it to a scientist saying, okay, we're gonna equally judge all these animals: a monkey, an elephant, a fish, a sloth. We're gonna judge them and see who's best by having them all climb this tree. And it's like, well, duh, the monkey's gonna win. Like, that's judging everyone on equal ground. I'd rather it be everyone judged on fair ground. How much weight can an elephant push over? How fast can that monkey climb the tree? And recognizing that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, and bringing that across all the characters that we have, to where it's no longer strong female characters, it's those strong characters, and bringing society forward by recognizing that everyone's different. And that's what makes us awesome, in my opinion.
And I don't want us to splinter off into different factions. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I think it's becoming a lot more niche-based fandom, and as it gets more specialized.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like get my train of thought. It's becoming, and it's like kind of splintering off, and I don't want it. I want there to be a sense of community.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with your analogy, like they're all animals in an ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And
like,
they all,
find the way to celebrate each other, like
exactly.
a cat and a mouse being friends.
Yeah.
Whereas normally a cat, you would think in traditional Tom and Jerry, a
Yeah.
cat would be
Yeah.
chasing a mouse. And there's all those pictures on any Facebook cat thing ever of like, my cat's fired because it doesn't know how to chase a mouse. I'm like, that's because the cat recognizes it's a great animal, he's got special qualities, and I go down my tangent.
And that's what I was wanting to like switch gears to, because we have on the second half of our outline just talking about women bringing each other up instead of putting each other down.
Yes.
And how do you find your community as a geek person, and feeling safe, and also we could talk about that personally, and also talk about where you've seen that in popular culture, where women support each other versus competing.
Yeah.
And anyone could jump in at this point.
As a nurse, I feel like since that's a female-dominated profession, I know that there is a tendency among nurses, especially in hospital setting, to eat their young. So new nurses come in, the older nurses are less accepting of them. And this is obviously not across the board, but
Right.
Well, that's
there
not
is.
actually just in nursing.
Yeah, well, I guess,
Yeah.
but it has been well noted and documented and talked about in
I work in
magazines.
printing, and that industry changes a lot. And you come in when you're really young, and people feel really threatened.
Yeah.
I think it's, you could eat almost any group ever with females. You're always going to have that group of females who just wants to tear all of the females apart. And it's like, you're just sitting there like, why? Like, why are we doing this? And I always look at it, and I actually start trying to like watch the person and be like, why are they tearing the group apart? And all of a sudden I realize it's because they want to be the strongest female in the group.
And they feel
They
threatened.
feel threatened.
They feel threatened, and they want all the males to recognize them as that super strong female. So she's going to show you every single weakness you possibly have across the group. And for me, I'm like, you just can't respond to it, because no matter how you respond, it's going to end poorly. And you could take that across different things. I mean, take super aggressive male, same thing. He's just threatened. And it's like, I got time for you.
I think Noelle Johnson, she's one of our Geek Girl Brunchettes, and she has a business on, developing your career. I think it was her that said that every woman should find a mentor that's senior in their field to like take them in and to get advice and to be a good sounding board.
Yes.
And I would love to see that in popular culture. Like, I would love to see like you know, a young Padawan,
Yeah.
you know, and then like, you know, a Jedi master who's a woman, like just kind of
I know.
seeing that dynamic.
It'd have been cool if Leia, like, well, I mean, no, she took the X-Wing guy under her wing.
Right,
More.
when she gets
didn't
older.
take the actual female. I feel like if she didn't literally die, which is a horrible way of saying it. I'm such a Ravenclaw, but straight logic. I think if she was actually going to be in the third movie, they probably could have shifted her to become more of a mentor for her, because they showed she could use the Force. And then we go on that whole tangent on like, how can she do that? Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, if Luke did that, y'all would have been for it. So hush.
Well, even then, they're both Skywalkers, and they're twins. So
Yeah.
there's no reason that she's not the same amount of Force capable as Luke is.
It was how she used the Force that people were getting upset, and I was like, if Luke did it, y'all would have been like, oh, he's the man, like. And I'm like, oh, here we
I
go.
believe that was, I mean, obviously none of the novels are canon, but I know that in the one novel they brought up that was how they got the name Skywalker,
Mm-hmm.
being able
You're
to
right.
to go through space without harm, and basically walk down from a exploding ship onto the surface of the planet or something like that.
Right.
So obviously the novels are now legendarian, but still that is there, and I think that's what they were pulling from with that bit.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. I was like, you know, the Jedi, what's great about them is they're always finding new ways to use the Force, and it's not that it's new, it's just it's never been discovered before.
Right.
I was more frustrated that I'm like, because she was freaking, like, I instantly jumped on the bandwagon of because she's female, y'all are mad about it.
Yeah, she's saying that there's precedent for it for both of them, but
Mhm.
I'm not actually familiar with any of this, but you're saying that there was a lot of blowback about it, and that you're thinking maybe it's because she's female. I always take that position too. I think I have like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder.
Mhm.
Like, instantly get pulled the lady card. Or something.
Well, you guys are talking about those like strong reactions, and it made me go back to, you said I Love Lucy. I Love Lucy, yes, she was the stay-at-home like mom,
Wife.
everything,
Yeah.
but I think she was like the first woman to ever say pregnant and like be pregnant on
air.
Television,
like,
yeah.
on air, and people flipped out. And now,
Like it's not natural to be pregnant.
yeah, I mean, that
Yeah.
was like a huge deal.
When they're on their period. You know,
And
kind of thing.
anytime things like that happened, you know, historically, it was like, oh my god, like big deal. And now a lot of things, like I know we're trying to bring attention and like have these kind of discussions, but those things that we're seeing with Mulan and Moana, and we don't really even like, that's cool, you know, we're like, okay, it doesn't register in our brains, like we don't, as a society, like have those reactions to those things anymore. Like the little girls like them and they all sing and everybody's happy, but nobody's just like, oh my gosh, look what they did. Like that reaction
I mean, it's
doesn't
still.
seem to be there
I guess I still have that
across.
reaction.
Like it seems like a few people do, but like just
Well, it's 2018.
society as a
But-
whole is just
but-
like, okay, like I feel like our reactions are moving as society. We're progressing more, like,
Just
and I think
yeah.
it's just like a little bit that nobody like it's easier to digest. Like people.
Well, like
aren't
you said,
ready.
the pregnant thing, like
Yeah.
it's 2018, but women still get shamed for breastfeeding, but men can walk outside, be shirtless, it's fine. But it's a natural thing, you know. Babies need to be fed. And it's still, people still have a.
I actually, I had that discussion with my parents when you go, I mean, ageism is kind of interesting because you can also look at it as a fact of like you're older and set in your ways versus, younger. It's like because they're introduced to it at such a younger age, they become more okay with it. So me and my mom were having a discussion and she's like, I just don't understand, why can't you just cover your breast? Like that's a sexual organ. And I was like, hey mom, an ankle back in the day used to be covered because it was considered sexual and it would arouse a man. She's like, okay, that's a good point. I see your side of it now. And now she's...
I tried to cover her up, but my little one would never nurse under a cover. And she's sitting there the whole time doing this and like
Right.
popping off the nipple, which is like bringing more attention to everything and uncovering the area.
Yes.
It's like,
I was more or less getting to the point of like what we're considering a sexual organ now is probably not going to be a sexual organ back in, or like
In the future.
In the
hopefully.
future. Like at one point, it's like, how dare you show your ankles? And now it's totally okay because we're all like, yeah, okay.
Are you judging me for my ankles?
I'm judging you.
I think it's gonna hold on. I think, you know, because it's a reproductive organ, and so it's part of that sexual
It's not, but it's not.
It's not. It's babies don't pop out of a nipple. Like.
It's part of it, though. It's part of that process.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that
It's probably just gonna hold on, unlike the ankle.
well, my problem with it is that it's a necessary thing, and there's nothing inherently sexual about it, with the exception of how society looks at it.
Oh, I
And it might-
breastfeed in public, and I don't cover up because I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care, but
Yeah.
I've tried for other people, but you know, just.
But I feel like the justification for it is almost rooted in, I don't even know where it comes from, because like thinking back really hard, I think the only thing that it could come from is that it's nakedness, and that nakedness, especially in Western culture, is very, very frowned upon.
Mhm.
And so I think that's where it comes from, and I think that I just don't know a way that something like that could change,
Well,
because it's the way that it's viewed.
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, at least,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Some areas have laws against it, women having showing their breasts.
Yeah.
You had made a really good point about like how culture is kind of like a mirror to, I mean,
In media.
yeah, media and whatnot. And I think maybe with like everything moving to streaming, and there not being censorship, it'd be interesting to see if like increased nudity and the way that female nudity is portrayed, if that would change people's perceptions about like if if breastfeeding was like more of a thing in like film on the streaming services, because I feel like there is a lot of censorship and rules in like the big networks.
In broadcasting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
broadcasting.
But with streaming, you don't have that same regulation.
Exactly.
Because the internet hasn't had that time to establish that.
And everyone's moving away from, the
Yeah.
big like TV broadcasting companies. So
Yeah.
There's breastfeeding and what's the name? It starts with R something. The Robber's Daughter, the name is Zaki. It's on Amazon. It's a TV show. It's Rona or something. Something. Yeah, there's a new mini series on Amazon you can watch of his, and it's got the mom breastfeeds the baby. So I actually liked it. I liked when they showed it, And I watched a little bit with my daughter, and I was like, oh look, it's a mommy and a baby getting milk, and she just loves anytime she sees that. She's just like, yay!
Baby's getting fed.
But with that, do you think that they're gonna continue, look at any, video game or anything, women, even, warrior women are in,
Scantily clad, boobs out.
that's totally not gonna save you. Men are all, decked out in their suits of armor, and women have, bikinis. Metal bikinis. And, not gonna save you. Do you think that's gonna change and be, Avery and Tarth actually...
You could have I just have to point out the irony of this, or not the irony, but I'm always a devil advocate. If you look back at Spartan culture, they actually wore very little armor
And
because of movement, the ability to protect each other because they worked as a group. So it's if you really think about it, women are just the smart ones because they're dressing and looking.
Yeah,
but it's funny because they're
my argument with that is that if it goes that way for women, it should go the same way for men.
Exactly.
And
And I don't mind it in that kind of
if you're gonna be
context,
hyper-realistic, working for yourself,
is.
armor to protect yourself, and shield for just you, then that should be the way that the entire culture operates, and it should be consistent.
Yeah, not women scantily clad.
Right.
women
Yeah.
No, I think it's funny because they're like, oh, she looks sexy. I'm like, actually, she's dressed like a Spartan warrior, and they're like, what? No, and I'm like, research it. Clearly, you don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I like to poke at people.
I think the point is probably for her to look sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a poker, so
Yeah.
Middle East, there was one guy that said I would never let my it was American Dad. It was this girl that was across from him. Her belly was shown and she was wearing shorts, and I don't care. I'm like, hey, if you're comfortable, you're comfortable. And he was like, I'd never let my daughter out of the house like that. And I leaned over and said, that's what a Middle Eastern father will tell her daughter or tell his daughter. And he's like, it's not the same. And I'm like, how is it not the same?
Yeah,
it's
really.
the same damn
And
thought
especially
process.
when you look at temperature and such. In the Middle East, they have very loose fitting and very flowy clothing, but it protects them from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And you could look into that, and then when you look at America, it's you tell your daughter that she can't go out exposing midriff, but it's that's one of the easiest ways to get ventilation, like throughout
Yep.
the outfit. And then when you're wearing shorts, you're not wearing clothing that will cover your legs, that will trap the heat in there.
Mhm.
And when you look at stuff like that, it's practicality and form over function.
Yeah.
And people view it as like, oh, you're just trying to show off your body, but really it's just being comfortable.
Mhm.
And it comes back to nakedness in society being viewed negatively for women. But for men, they can be like walking out in swim shorts, and it's like, oh, well, you know.
Banana hammock. Like, oh, he looks cool.
I've never seen a banana hammock and thought, wow, that looks cool.
I wanted to answer your question, Melissa.
Dude in a blue sequin one at Fanboy with like.
The military, like, men in the military are so in touch with their feminine side, I have no freaking clue they are. Like, I actually got pissed because there was a guy in Ranger panties at the gym. That's what we call them, Ranger panties. It's booty shorts for men, essentially.
Yeah.
And they were originally at one point the PT short, like that's what they wore because it was like jogger shorts and it was comfortable. And a girl came in behind him with yoga pants on, so obviously tight, form-fitting, but completely covered because they were pants. And they said, you can't wear that, it's sexual. And I was like, oh, hold the frick on. I jumped all over that one. I was like, she can't wear yoga pants, but he can wear Ranger booty shorts?
You're sexualizing what I'm wearing, that's why it's sexual.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, and it's funny, and it's just
And I feel like
back to the clothes thing.
if men were sexualized the same way that women were, we'd be on much more equal ground.
Mhm.
Is the way that it is, because the male body is not sexualized, and at least in, I want to say in older media, I haven't been paying attention to it. Yeah, I haven't been paying attention to it in newer media.
I don't know that I like it, but I do like it at the same time, so I'm like, ha, you know.
There's ways to celebrate it, or
Exactly, it's celebrating sexuality versus sexualization.
yes,
Consent.
Consent.
Key.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a
consent.
different
But to answer your question, Melissa, about like video games and would you think that will change with like armor and stuff, I think money is where change happens.
Yeah.
And so, you know, video games back in the day was like predominantly a male audience, so they were trying to, you know, market to them. And I feel like as the video game community diversifies, hopefully that will evolve because there are women putting money in video games.
And there are people that will complain about that kind of thing
Exactly.
when they're over-sexualized. And,
Yeah.
and diversifying media is, on top of bringing more people in, like it's like being a more inclusive environment is nothing but a net positive for gaming as a whole. And I don't, like, it's a really unfortunate mishap that in gaming's history it was predominantly featured on the male toys aisle as opposed to the female.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
marketed
I was just
towards
talking
men.
to folks from Cosplay Collective, and I was like, I love playing League of Legends. Like, I suck at it, but I love it. But my favorite characters to play are, they're like scantily clad. Like, I freaking love playing Morgana, and it's like this teeny tiny little like bikini top
Yeah.
and some wings, and I'm like, I'm not walking around in that. Like, it looks really good. Like,
Well, that's
Well, like, back when I was younger, like, I have no shame. I'll buy the boys' clothes because, like, that's where all the cool clothes were all the Batman, all the Star Wars.
Yeah.
But at least now there's at least one of my favorite brands, Her Universe. She started a brand because she voiced Ahsoka Tano in the Clone Wars series. And when she started the show in 2009, she started, of course, going to the cons talking about the show. And she wanted to wear, you know, Star Wars clothes made by female, but she only had one shirt. And she realized that right now, in 2018, the fandom, or most fandoms are now 50-50, and 80% of who buys the stuff are females. We're the ones who go shopping. And so we're here to, like, you know, support the fandoms. We were the ones who, like, a lot of us put the money in. So now that there's more, hopefully it will change the perception because there's more female stuff
We
out
have
there.
money too.
Yeah, we have money too. We also collect. I collect Funkos. Like,
Elaborating a little bit further on the League of Legends point, I think a great example of changing media, especially over such a short period of time, is when you look at League of Legends, like the older character designs. When you look at Morgana and you look at, Kale's a bad example of that, but there's a lot of characters in the early game design that are very sexualized, like Misfortune, and they don't have a defined purpose behind it. But as the character designs have evolved, and especially a lot of like the reworks and such, they change the characters to either purposefully have that sort of design and make it have a purpose and make it mean something to the character, or give them practical armor. like make it make sense with the character, make sense in the universe, and I feel like that change is such a huge progression, and you have such a diversity in the cast of League of Legends, and I think that it speaks a lot towards like the cast of multiplayer gaming stuff, especially like with Overwatch being more predominant now and coming further out into the spotlight and bringing more diversity and stuff into gaming as a whole. And then it also dives into homosexual, like just bringing out a whole lot of positive stuff out of gaming culture and diversifying the community, and then bringing that in so that future titles and such will have similar attributes.
Like even the Wonder Woman of the 60s, like her costume was more like the bathing suit style, and now at least it's a little better, more historically accurate with the Amazons, with the newer Wonder Woman. So there's
and it's armor now.
And it's armor now, it actually protects.
Well, she was originally given a pinup.
Yeah, pinup look.
About World War II era.
Yeah, so it's like a better reflection of the times, at least.
I was gonna say, I think, and I don't want to like discredit the people who who are women who want their characters to wear a scantily clad bikini. Like if they want that, that's
that's great for femme fatale characters,
yes.
or for characters that thrive off of that sort of that sexual energy and sort of use it to their advantage as a character. And there's a lot of really great examples of that, especially in League of Legends. But like just there's a purpose for the character design, and then it works for the character.
I just want
or
there to
Black
be diversity.
Widow.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I want to have choices.
Like exactly.
Yeah. I want to hear. I'm going to put you on the spot, Amanda, because you're like a video game nerd. I want to hear what you think about this, and I feel like you've been quiet. So.
I've actually been thinking, like, is it okay if they give it a purpose? Because like with Metal Gear Solid, I think the character's name was Quiet.
Quiet, yeah.
And she was a sniper, and they tried to explain why she runs around mostly naked. And I'm like, is that okay if you explain it away somehow?
Well, there's a difference between explaining it away and having it fuel into the character's design and personality.
Right.
Quiet doesn't come across as a sexy character because, as a sniper, you want to stay far away from the enemy. And there's a great video going over Widowmaker and Overwatch that elaborates further on that concept, that a femme fatale works when they're up close and personal and able to seduce a target into dropping their guard. A sniper doesn't do that.
I guess my point is we need more characters that aren't the femme fatale. Like, we need overweight characters, plus size video game characters. Usually in video games, you have the Barbie shape, and that's it. But, I mean, have we ever seen a female character that likes to cover up, that doesn't expose skin, and that was built into her character?
I think it depends on the genre, because there's a lot of stuff that I can see like a slice of life.
Yeah.
Or something
like
that takes place. Exactly, something that's very focused and centered on the real world, where having multiple body types should be more encouraged and more diverse. And then like I feel like everything should have a place, and as long as it makes sense and it tells a story.
I actually thought of something horrible with JRPGs is like mostly when you talk about women being physically diverse, that just means their boob size. Yeah. And we need more than just that.
Yeah, look at male characters. They can be physically diverse. And sometimes in some video games, male characters are like not diverse at all. And I'm like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah, when you play the video game and you make your character, like if the sliding bar, right, with muscular or like, doughiness, like if for men, there's way more diversity when you slide that bar versus women.
Yeah, because like if I want to make a sim that looks like me, that's impossible. Like you can't do that.
I did like Fallout 4 because, and I'm a huge Fallout 4 person. I did actually like them because they, not only can you choose if the main character is male or female based on what you want to play, but it also had the same amount of diversity as far as the character and building it.
Yeah,
and then it was funny, I accidentally picked black guy for my husband because I just somehow screwed up the buttons, and then they actually made a mixed baby. Sean at the end, when he was actually older, was actually like a mix between the two skin tones. I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of funny. They put this much thought into the game that if someone actually picked two different color parents, Sean is the mix of the two. I was like, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. People in charge of things like that need to put that level of detail in so that it's like suddenly there in our background. And
exactly.
Diverse,
it just
and things
keeps them
are like that.
It normalizes it.
Yeah.
They should just make character generators that like randomly pick the skin tone and like the body size. I've seen things like that go horribly wrong.
Dark Souls.
Yeah.
But I mean, Dark Souls is another example of a really great, diverse, like, like character changer. Like you can, there is, in fact, in Dark Souls, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this because it might have been a mod when I was watching a playthrough. But there is several, like lots of variation with not just skin tone and muscularness, but also with the different body types that are available there. And it doesn't change the stats of the character at all. It just changes the physical view. And granted, the character is usually covered in armor, but still, I feel like that's a huge step in the right direction as far as with those types of character changes that you can have. And this was something that we talked about.
Another game series that's really good is. Are we out of time?
Yeah, I'm
We
sorry.
are.
We're wrapping up. I just want to thank you guys for coming and this is an awesome discussion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was glad to see you then.
I know.
Thank you for the
I
men
was
coming and
so cute.
participating.
Hey.
Yeah, but that's 2 more than you guys.
Yeah.
No, it was.
Another panel, he would have been here too.
Yeah, I think it was a good discussion. A great note to end on. We're looking across the board, male and female. We're looking for diversity. We're looking for inclusion. We're looking for. I want to see myself in pop culture, and that's. As long as we keep moving forward.
And we want you guys to be able to see yourself in pop culture too.
Yeah, everybody should be able to see.
Like you said,
something
fair
for
but not
themselves.
equal.
Fair, yes. I like fair.
When you said Mulan was a really big deal for you.
Yeah.
You finally get to see yourself.
Yes.
I love that when I see all kinds of diverse people in shows. I know there's somebody out there that sees that.
Like you've cosplayed as different redheads from Doctor
Yeah.
Who. I love that.
Redheads.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thanks again for showing up. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Great discussion.
Yay.
And